Good evening and welcome back to another episode of the Arrow Preacher Podcast. I am your dashing host. Hello there, the Arrow Preacher. How's everybody doing? It has been a while, hasn't it? It's been quite a while, actually. So I had a procedure that took a lot of time to heal from. I was in no position to do much of anything in and out of the hospital. So suffice to say, it's been a while, and I'm glad to be back, and we're coming back on a short one, but a doozy of a one. So I recently posted something to social media. It doesn't really matter which one, but I posted something recently, and it was talking about the White House reconstruction, dealing with the new ballroom and fixing the bunker underneath the East Wing, I believe it is. And so what I had posted was that construction had been done under Obama. And a comment came across, and I don't begrudge somebody for trying to spread awareness. I don't have a problem with that. But what was said was that the money spent on the construction under Obama was actually voted for under Bush. I don't have a problem with that because that wasn't the point at all. It wasn't that Obama had done something wrong. He didn't, and neither did Bush for signing in the money for the renovation project. In fact, in my opinion, the renovations over the years have been necessity. Occasionally, you have to do renovations to make a building more up to date, and you have to adapt with the times. Now, we have become accustomed to blaming Trump for everything he does, no matter what it is. It doesn't matter what it is, it's wrong. And that's what we as a society have really come down to doing, is whether it's a reasonable thing or not, it's wrong. Whether it's the right thing to do or not, it's wrong. For instance, many will argue about Maduro and whether he should have been removed or not from office, and whether it was the right thing to do or not. People still say that Trump was wrong. Going into this further conflict with Iran, whether you like it or not, people will say it wasn't the right thing to do, regardless if they were a ruthless dictator, regardless if they've killed thousands of American soldiers and troops and personnel and civilians over the years. It doesn't matter if though that's the case or not. Doing this in many people's eyes is wrong, and that's fine. You can have that opinion. But the comment that I had made after was that at least under Obama, it was all taxpayer dollars. This time, at least it's not taxpayer dollars. This time it is privately funded dollars. And the response I got kind of made me scratch my head a little bit, because it was the response that I didn't fully understand. Now, I am not about getting into these arguments with somebody. I'm not going to. I'm going to post what I'm going to post. I'm going to post my opinions, and if you like it, great. If it sways your opinion, great, but I'm not going to argue about it. It is what it is. Because no matter what I say, I don't think because anything I say that might happen to be pro-Trump. Now, I'm critical of Trump. I've been critical of Trump about a lot of things, especially his stance on the Second Amendment, some of his team, their stance on the Second Amendment. I've been very critical of him about those things. And I don't always agree with some of the decisions he makes, and I certainly don't agree with some of the verbiage he makes. For instance, during the Charlie Kirk memorial, there was a lot of things that he said that I didn't agree with. Now, as a whole, I enjoyed the Charlie Kirk memorial. I thought it was a wonderful piece of worship, and I didn't like all the speakers. Not everybody that spoke was somebody that I agreed with, and I certainly didn't agree with everything that the president had said. And I didn't like the way that the president kind of made it about him during the speech. So I am critical of the president, and I can be conservative and critical of the president at the same time, because I'm not a moron. And I can see the difference. So specifically speaking, the comment that I made was, it's by donor dollars, it's not by taxpayer dollars, which is great. If you're going to do a renovation of the White House, having other people pay for it rather than the taxpayers, especially when it's divided and you're going to have 50% of taxpayers not approving of the project because it's who it is doing the project, then donor dollars would be the best way to go, because you can have donor dollars do the needed repairs, the needed updates of the building, and you don't have to worry about half the population being upset over their money going towards something that they don't want. Now, half of the people are still going to be upset because it's defiling the White House. Like, it hasn't been done in the past. Like, we haven't done renovations in the past. It didn't look this way to begin with, people. It took a lot of people doing renovations for it to get to where we are. And the fact is, the White House has not been truly updated in a long time. But every president, even if it's not on the outside, does renovations on the inside. They change the way the inside is. They do the paint and stuff like that. So there are bits and pieces of the White House that have been changed by every president. When part of the Rose Garden was fixed, people were like, oh, how dare he, the Rose Garden, blah, blah, blah. But people are like, you do realize people are like spraining ankles on the grass when they have an event and it's wet. People who wear high heels and stuff like that in the grass, their ankles are getting hurt. People are, slipping and falling and hurting themselves with high heels in grass and whatnot. So they changed a little bit of it, and people lost their minds just the fact that he was trying to make it more safe for everybody in an area that wasn't really going to make much of a difference. And yet people still lost their minds anyway. It didn't matter. But here's the thing that I wanted to point out. The quote that was mentioned to me was, the donor dollars just shows corruption. It shows the people being able to get to the president. Let's talk about that, shall we? And this is from NBC News. Okay, so a left-leaning journalist to begin with. Okay, NBC News. I'm going to go through just a few of them because I don't know all of them, but I'm going to point out the ones that I do know. Amazon. Well, pretty sure Jeff Bezos, who's the owner of Amazon, is one of the largest, if not the largest contributor to the Democrat Party in the country. And yet he donated to the White House. So is that corruption? If it was, I think Bezos would have said something. Apple, as much as I love my Apple device, they've leaned left, unfortunately, in my opinion. But still, Caterpillar, the big company that does all of the equipment. Caterpillar, Comcast, Hard Rock International, Google, HP, Lockheed Martin, Meta, Micron Technology, Microsoft, T-Mobile, and then it goes into individual people that I'm not familiar with these people, and nor was I going to take the time to look it up. However, what I will say is Microsoft, Meta, Google, I believe even Comcast, they've all been Democrat companies, and yet they still donated to the White House renovation. So, because when you actually look at who's doing it, if it was all Republican-leaning entities, you might have been able to say that sure, there could very well be some corruption involved. But the fact that so many on the list of the corporations are actually left-leaning corporations is telling. The fact that this has nothing to do with corruption. This has to do with leaving a legacy, and this has to do with leaving a legacy for multiple presidents to use in the future. One of the things that I really like about this project is it's going to do two things. A, our ballroom is not the smallest ballroom on the planet, but it's also quite small compared to some of the others. I did a quick search to find out some of the larger entities, the larger nations, and their oh man, I hate when I close out and it closes out. Some of the other countries that have a larger ballroom than we do is obviously the Kremlin. The Kremlin has a much larger space than we do. China has a much larger space than we do. Japan has a much larger space than we do. England uses Buckingham Palace. That's a much larger space than us. Now, we don't have the smallest by any means, but when we use that space for state dinners and you're maxing out at like 170, I think it's 177 people, that's pretty small, for a state dinner when you include dignitaries and stuff like that. So the fact that we're making this much larger and we'll be able to host a much larger group of individuals at the White House, I think that's important. I think it's important that we are not sitting in the Cold War anymore, where we're not in a time period where our enemies or our allies and other dignitaries were few. We've gotten to a point where, we are more of a world entity now, and more people are able or will be able to come to these state dinners, which is huge. You can host bigger venues going forward. And I think it's always important to the idea of being able to host these bigger venues. Not to mention, I certainly think it's important, and every president will benefit for this. It's not just Trump, okay? One of the if this was just Trump benefiting and it was just for his own ego, maybe it is for his own ego, but it's still going to benefit the United States. It's still going to benefit every other president coming after him that serves, whether they're Democrat or Republican. They will be able to host at this facility. And not to mention, the bunker that's being built or renovated rather underneath that wing has not been renovated since the Cold War. I think maybe Bush Senior, if I remember correctly, but I thought it was the Cold War. I don't remember. But either way, I mean, that's almost 30 years without a renovation to the area that the president goes in the event that he needs to take cover underground. So I think that, while there is a lot that can be said and a lot that people can actually argue one way or the other about how they feel about Trump, I think that the ballroom renovation is one of those things that just doesn't make any sense to argue about. It doesn't hurt anybody. It's private donors. A lot of the donors are Democrats, so it gets rid of the idea that there's some mass conspiracy of corruption going on. Is it his ego talking? Sure. Does he want to leave a legacy since this is his last term? Perhaps. But either way, it still benefits the American people being able to host bigger venues. It benefits presidents and vice presidents and all those to come, and you'll be able to do a lot more types of events there than you could before. So to me, it doesn't seem like such a bad thing. Again, people might disagree with me, and that's fine. People might like the White House the way that it was, and they don't like change. And to that, I get it. A lot of people don't like change, but the White House has been changed fairly many times over the last 250 years of this nation, and this is not going to be the last renovation. I guarantee a president in the future is going to do another renovation, and I guarantee that generation is going to have a bunch of people that don't like it either. Just like we just don't like change all that much. So what I would say is this. I would say continue to pray for this nation, and I would say pick your battles. If this is a hill that you're willing to die on, cool. If not, let it go. Because this is obviously small potatoes. Compared to the conflict in Iran, compared to what's going on with gas prices, compared to what's going on with tariffs, compared to what's going on with crime, compared to what's going on with judges letting people off the hook for murder. There was a pretty heinous incident, and the guy was let out, I think, on $1,000 bond. It was atrocious, and I think it was a murder charge recently. Might have been in Charlotte, actually. I think it was, which is sad. There's a lot bigger hills to die on than rather to die on the hill of whether the White House is being rightly renovated or not. And Congress just voted. It was I think an 8-1 vote. So once the judge releases the plans to be able to get back to construction, the faster we do this, the faster we can get it done and be done with it and move on. And people will be able to use this in 3 years. They'll be able to go about their business, and whoever gets in next will be able to use it, and people will be able to come, and it'll be a wonderful occasion to host in a brand new ballroom. So, but I hope everybody is doing well today, as obviously it's late, but today as we celebrated Good Friday, I hope everybody remembers what happened today. I hope everybody remembers how important Good Friday is, that without Good Friday, our sins are not paid for. Without the blood of Christ, our sins go unpaid for, and it doesn't matter how sorry we are, it doesn't matter what we do, we would still be unfortunately doomed to hell because we didn't have the necessary sacrifice to pay for those sins. So Jesus came, he sacrificed, he was the willing lamb, he laid down his life. He said, "No one takes my life, I lay it down freely. I have the authority to lay it down, and I have the authority to pick it back up." And he does. And in just a few days' time, we will celebrate Resurrection Sunday, and he will have picked up his life again. And because he lives, so can we all. So I hope everybody is well this weekend. Go in peace, go in love, and as always, live long and prosper. And before I forget, if you haven't already, go to my YouTube, which is where you are right now. But go to YouTube, go to Shorts, and you'll see that I now do a Arrow Preacher verse of the day. And as always, like, comment, subscribe, and share. See you guys next time. Stay blessed.